I'm on the line right now with Impact Wrestling star Madman Fulton. How you doing tonight?
Oh, just another day in paradise, brother.
I hear that. How you staying busy right now
Uh,
when you're not in the ring?
Honestly, any way I can, man. Not having wrestling is the worst. Like, it's all I want to think about. It's all I want to do. So, like, I don't know. I'm just impatient. I'm ready to move on to the next thing, especially right now.
I mean, you are working. You had the tapings a couple weeks ago, and tomorrow you actually have a match with Trey of the Rascals. You kind of teamed up with Ace Austin recently. You took out Eddie Edwards last week. You have Trey tomorrow. How you feeling about that going in tomorrow night?
I feel great going in tomorrow night. This new version, this new life that I feel finally kind of escaping that shadow of Sami and what OVE was, like to really embrace like who I feel like I am inside was awesome. And that match with Eddie, that's my statement. That's my statement to the world of what I can bring into professional wrestling. And this upcoming week with Trey is no different. Trey is obviously has a ton going for him. He put on a amazing performance against Michael Elgin in the number one contenders tournament, and he deserves his shot, in that main event of Slammiversary. But I'm going to prove exactly why I'm one step above him.
Now, you bring up a good point in that, he had a really, really good showing in that tournament. And then as we saw, he didn't get his own title shot. It ended up being a five-way match, and that's kind of up in the air now. But, with everything that's been going on, and you're at Ace Austin's side and you have his back, but now with Michael Elgin and Tessa leaving the company for their respective reasons, does that open up room for you in the title picture? Not only because you beat Eddie, who's in the match, but you're saying you're already one step above another guy in the match. Do you feel like you have a case to maybe throw yourself in there?
Let's put it this way. I don't have to wait for the things that have happened, as unfortunate as they are. I didn't have to wait for those things to happen. I'm making my own case. Those tapings were done well before any of that stuff ever happened or came out. Before any of these decisions were ever made. Those matches happened and were taped. So you know what? I've proven I can handle myself with or without any of those stars there, wherever they go. I will always be in this top main event level. It's where I've always been. It's where I've always needed to be. Impact Wrestling sees that. Ace Austin sees that. And after I beat two of the top three number one contenders, I think the entire world will have no choice but to see that.
2 out of the 3. Right now, Ace is the third. So if it came to that, do you guys just put it aside and let the best man win, or?
Ace Austin and I have our respective plan. We know where we want to go. Unlike the whole OVE and Sami Callihan scenario, he's taking into account what I want to do, what my thought process is. He's not just dragging me along and giving me orders. We're working together as a team. When that moment comes, there's a plan that we have to worry about, not anybody else.
I think the obvious parallel, and it's been used many times throughout wrestling history since then, was the Shawn Michaels and Diesel relation. Do you see any of that, or is there another team that you kind of take inspiration for, or kind of see you guys, being like, that maybe people don't pick up on?
I think with the Shawn Michaels and Diesel stuff, the comparisons are obvious. You have your very talented younger, just playboy, and you have the big monster behind him. And I get that. And I've watched Kevin Nash's work, and I've learned from him, and I grew. But I think the way the business works, we have everything that they've done ready and available to watch. We have that to learn, to grow. We have every wrestler leading up from them on to now. We have so much more available to us. So our potential is much, much higher than anything Michaels or Nash could have produced on their own. And I think the longer this runs and the more we get to really show ourselves, the more everybody's going to start to realize that it doesn't matter what teams you want to compare us to. Ace Austin and Madman Fulton are going to be Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. We're not the next Michaels and Nash. We are the now Austin and Fulton.
I think one of the more interesting things about you guys is both of your respective starts in Impact Wrestling. You didn't really know what to expect because you showed up, like you said, with OVE, and Ace kind of showed up and, was more playing on his name with, the Ace, the playing card, and then he started doing the more adult-themed stuff with Eddie Edwards. But I think it's the argument's there to, wait things out, see where it goes, kind of like let everybody feel themselves out, and you're seeing that pay off where maybe the first thing that you did wasn't a home run, or maybe it was by design, but you're finally seeing you and Ace click, and it's exciting to kind of see where it goes because you weren't, you're not going to be OVE's monster the entire time, and he's not going to be put in a box the entire time.
I think the measure of a great performer and a great professional wrestler is someone who can take from their past and move on from it, to adapt and to move it into a place where they can use it in a present time, to switch it and become something new, something better. And you see it through wrestlers throughout the ages. Triple H being one of my favorite examples of him, of going from this prancy rich boy into what we see him as the King of Kings. There's always been that build in professional wrestling. This transition is nothing more than me finding out more about myself and being more confident as myself, in myself, as a performer and as a professional wrestler. And it's that time is teaming with somebody like Ace. The two of us can bring the best out of each other, and in that we're going to bring the best out of Impact Wrestling. So yeah, things change, but I think it's a measure of how good both of us can be as performers to take what we've had and move it into something bigger and better than what we were before.
And I think you can see that in your work, especially both in Impact and WWE, NXT. Over the years, we've kind of heard about, and we saw you on with Sanity, but we've heard different stories about what could have been. And Sami Callihan was supposed to lead Sanity, and Eric Young stepped in, and then you were in the group. Killian Dane stepped in. I heard another story about the original inspiration was from the movie Smokin' Aces. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I forget their names now. The three crazy brothers in Smokin' Aces was kind of the original theory for what Sanity was. And it was kind of along the lines, like watching that, I could see how close what I already was, how close that was to who I already was in NXT.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were talking about before, things happen. You have to adapt and you have to overcome. And I think a big thing for me was being let out on my own, because while you're in NXT, you're learning from the best. You have the greatest minds in there. You have everyone and everything you need to possibly learn from. But when you get kicked out, that's gone. When you're on your own, nobody's paying you to sit around. You get hurt, you're done. Things change. You have to learn how to perform. That check isn't going to come week to week to week. You have to go out. You have to earn it every single time, because now your check is absolutely 100% by the fans who come into the arena and not by some large overall company. So when that food starts coming off your plate and you start getting hungry, you either advance or you die. And I advanced.
The Tremor Brothers.
Yes, that's it. Tremor Brothers.
It took me a couple seconds, but I remember Chris Pine was one of them. I can't remember the other two guys.
That movie has a crazy amount of celebrities, most of which die within the first 5 minutes of being seen. It's really also it's a great movie.
You talked a little bit about the relationship between yourself, Sami Callihan, OVE, and that he brought you in, so to speak, to Impact Wrestling. And one thing that kind of stayed with me when I think it was on a conference call, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a conference call, not a direct interview, but he advocated for you in a big way. And I asked him, he teamed with Brian Cage for a while as twins on the indie scene. And
Mm-hmm.
when you showed up, I was like, do you see you guys having that sort of relationship? And I'll read the quote from him, because first he said, no, it's not going to be like that. It's not going to just be a big man, little man. And he said, I was a big advocate of getting him in there because I knew what he was capable of. I don't think anywhere in the wrestling world he's been given a true chance. He's another guy that I've taken under my wing and helped make who he is. He's grown leaps and bounds over the past year since moving back to Ohio. If people work hard for me, I work hard for them. I'm a very loyal person. Now, hearing that, how do you feel about having him not only speak up on your behalf like that, but how do you feel like you've grown as a wrestler since leaving NXT to now?
Sammy's taken years and years to build his name to what it is, and rightfully so. Like, he's worked his ass off for everything that he's earned in professional wrestling. And we've always been friends. He's always been someone to help me, to drive me. And when I got let go from NXT, I didn't have that drive. I didn't see it in my own mind anymore. When I started falling into this pit, just further, and wrestling really wasn't the thing. I started questioning if it was even where I wanted to go. But Sammy, he's the one. He kind of helped me get back up on that horse. He tried to convince me, kind of kick my butt into gear a little bit. And while he does give you chances, what Sammy doesn't do is force you onto anything. He opens up the door for you, but it's up to you to be able to get up and go through that door on your own. And knowing that he was even willing to open up that door gave me kind of new hope, new life to want to work harder and become better. And it's, as I was saying before, your determination changes when you're not eating, when things get tough, when you're down in the dumps and you're down to ramen noodles only. You have to get better. You have to adapt. And being able to work with both Sammy and Jake Christ, especially, who's one of the greatest, in-ring psychologists, in-ring talent there is. Just being able to bounce ideas off of them and work with them in such a capacity, it's impossible not to get better. Like, those two have done great things for me. Just miles and miles of stuff. I can't thank what they've done for me as friends enough.
You're with Ace now, but more or less on your own, stepping away from Sanity or stepping away from OVE. What do you kind of want people to take notice of from you on your own as an individual this year?
I think it's pretty obvious what I want. And watching the match with Eddie, and if you watch the match tomorrow with Trey, you'll see exactly what I bring to the ring. This is my first real opportunity to step out on my own and to prove who I am and what I am as a performer. And I've been sitting here and telling everyone that I'm one of the best big man in this business right now. And it's hard to believe, because when you only do it on the indies, when you're not getting the time and the opportunity to show yourself on a national level, it's hard to back those claims up. But now I have that. I've worked my ass off. I've proven myself with Impact. I've done my duties. I've shown myself to be a trustworthy competitor, and now I'm being given the opportunity. I'm being given the chance. I'm being handed a ball. And if anyone thinks I'm going to slow down for 1 second, you're out of your damn mind. Because I've been given an opportunity, and literally no one will ever take it from me.
Well said. I've been doing a feature since we've kind of all been in quarantine, the watch list, just asking everybody that I talked to, everybody was worried. That's obviously not the case anymore. but everybody was worried about not having any wrestling content when we were home because of, all these different issues we were facing. But are there any matches from your career that you want to point out and say, this really represents who I am as a wrestler? Or are there any other matches that you've gotten a chance to sit down and watch recently that maybe, a past superstar, somebody you're working with right now that, just you really took note of and thought somebody, you really need to sit down and watch this match?
Started off for me. Other than that recent match with Eddie, I had a Pro Wrestling Revolver 5-way Hoss match with I believe Moose, Brian Cage, Crash Jackson, and Willie Mack. Oh, AC Romero. One of those guys is not in there. There's a combination of 5 of us. I don't remember it quite. But I remember it's one of the first times I had my family come watch me perform with high level opponents in a real wrestling atmosphere compared to, not saying the indies aren't, there's certain indies that aren't. I'm saying the Pro Wrestling Revolver atmosphere is something that I've wanted my parents to experience. It's different than other crowds. And that match holds a special place in my heart personally. But I think a lot of the stuff that I've been doing with Impact, from start to finish, I've been really proud of. I go in there and I put my heart into my work, and I'm glad it's finally starting to show. I'm glad that a company's finally starting to see the potential I bring and just the things I'm hearing back, and the path that seems to be set out in front of me is super positive. So if you want to watch anything from my end, I highly suggest anything from my Impact era has been by far the best that I've been in my career.
That match that you were talking about was a Hoss fight scramble. It was yourself, AC Romero, Brian Cage, Crash Jackson, and Willie Mack, and that was actually
no Moose was in a different scramble then.
Yeah, that was I'm sorry, I paused. I'm trying to read both lines. So the first one that you mentioned was at the co-promoted No Surrender pay-per-view. I think it was an Impact Plus event, and then the other one Moose was in was also with one called Manders, Larry D, and that was November to Member.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Okay, yeah. Manders is another guy. If you're looking out, just young kid out there killing it, man. He's another dude from this area that you should definitely check out.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing a lot over the past few years. Like Ohio's kind of like becoming this hotbed for wrestlers. And it's kind of
Ohio's always been a hotbed for wrestlers. You can look at any of the top promotions now and see how many of us are from this area. I think one, because Ohioans are just more determined people, but two, it's such an awesome spot for being able to travel out because Chicago's only 6 hours, New York City's a little over 8. You have a bunch of stuff, a whole portion of the country that's open very easily just from Ohio. And especially when you're out on the indie circuit and you're trying to make your name and you have to drive everywhere, it comes in handy. And it's the whole reason I moved back from Florida. It's that makes that much of a difference because I never would have reached the success I am at right now if I had stayed in Florida. I promise you that.
Yeah, I guess it's more appropriate to say that you always had the talent in Ohio, but maybe now it's getting more attention. But I totally understand where you're coming from about moving back from Florida. I lived in Orlando for about 3 years, and it just, it wasn't for me. So I can understand, where you're coming from. And I live in Pennsylvania now, so, it's just a case of you need to either go back home or go somewhere new where you can find a new way to improve yourself and to grow professionally, personally, whatever. So
exactly, you just especially in this world, you just have to keep pushing forward. Yeah, there's going to be bad stuff, there's going to be bumps in the road, but if you stop at every bump, you're never going to get anywhere. It's the past is the past. NXT doesn't matter to me anymore. MLW doesn't matter to me anymore. Those things are in my past. OVE is done with. Right now, I'm focusing on me. I'm focusing on what Madman Fulton can bring to Impact Wrestling, and there's literally nothing standing in my way.
Madman Fulton, you can see him every week on Impact Wrestling. You have a match against Trey tomorrow night. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.